Good day, everyone. Richard Cowperthwait for Northwest Access TV. Thanks for joining us here again. And we're going to be talking about the proposed expansion of the Franklin County State Airport in Highgate, and especially its relevance to Missisquoi Valley Union High School and the Missisquoi Valley School District with some significant educational opportunities possibly coming down the road. So big project, a lot to talk about, and happy to have three people who can tell us all about the project and about how this could affect MVU. Across from me, Julie Regenball, the superintendent of the Missisquoi Valley School District. Julie, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
And another Julie next door, Julie Torres, a 2020 MVU graduate who works at the airport. And to my right, Chris Shepard, the chair of the Missisquoi Valley School District Board. Thanks a lot, folks, for the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
So again, I guess I'll talk just briefly about the project. I think a lot of folks are probably heard something about it. I guess it's been in the news for, I don't know, maybe up to the last year or so, but I guess three parts to the project, and it looks like the state is very likely to move ahead on at least one of these aspects of the project, an upgrade of the airport, including an extension of the runway. But two other parts would be private development of a 7-lot commercial park on abutting property, and also the extension of water and sewer lines from MVU to the airport. And that is seen as a key component of fostering economic development of the area. In fact, I guess a water sewer line, I guess, was extended to MVU a while back, so kind of be an extension of that. Anyway, and certainly a project, and there'll be a key vote in Highgate later this year on a bond vote. So there are a number of different parts to this project. But Julie, again, just looking at the future, again, nobody should think anything's going to be happening very quickly with this, but again, for the future, and again, we can talk about Franklin County, not exactly Chittenden County in terms of income, quite a number of low and moderate income families. Job opportunities are always something to catch people's attention, but you see this as just a pretty good project down the road?
Well, I think it's really important on a number of levels. One, obviously, economic development in our community only benefits our schools. Generally, families move in when there's economic development. That drives up the number of students that are enrolled in our schools. It's all a benefit to our community as a whole and the health of our schools. But if you think about the purpose of schooling, and you think about the outcomes after students graduate, we have about 30 to 40% of students who go on to college. We have a number of students who enter the military. In our community of 3 towns, Swanton, Highgate, and Franklin, at the highest, we have about 18% of folks who have bachelor's degrees or above. We really need to have good work-based opportunities in our schools that help train students for good, high-paying jobs and careers. Because a large percentage of our students are looking for that, and our community needs it. So not only do we need the employment, but the opportunities for students to have pre-employment training while they're in high school. It's just an important aspect of what public schools are required to do and really need to do to serve our students well.
Is that happening to some extent now? There's some local industries where kids are doing apprenticeship programs or some kind of things?
Certainly. We have a full-time work-based learning coordinator at MVU. He works with students to set up apprenticeships. We have relationships with companies throughout Chittenden and Franklin County. Transportation is a big barrier for a lot of our families and students. So an opportunity at the airport, literally in our backyard, is one that's really exciting, not only because of the quality of opportunities that would be available for students, but just that barrier of transportation isn't there.
Yeah. Interesting. Julie, you can tell us a little about the airport. So a 2020 MVU graduate, and I guess interest in aviation for a long time?
I suppose you could say that.
Interesting. And you work at the airport.
I do.
Can you tell us about your job?
I love it. I started February of 2020. Richard Barwin got me set up with Beth White.
And we'll be talking to Beth a little later, yeah.
And she introduced me to George Coy, who's my mentor and employer. And
Is he the manager of the airport or?
no.
No.
But I
Anyway.
work for his son as well, Cliff Coy, who might be considered the manager of the
Or
airport.
co-manager, I knew that. When I
Yeah.
think of the Coys, I think of the Franklin County State Airport, but in
Mhm.
any case.
Yeah.
So what do you do? What's your job exactly?
I'm training to be an aviation maintenance technician,
Wow,
an AMT.
interesting. And did I see, would you like to be a commercial pilot also? Is that still
Possibly.
possibly?
Yep.
Have you taken, do you fly now? Have you taken like?
I
no?
do. I take a lesson a week.
Wow,
My flight instructor, Kyra Becker.
interesting. Good. So how does this sound to you, Chris, as the chair of the board? Again, I guess any opportunities, economic development opportunities probably sound pretty good to you folks, I would guess?
I would absolutely agree with that. I'm personally a resident of Highgate. I have 3 children at MVU,
Oh.
and within my own house, I would say I have 2 headed to college, and I have 1 that is definitely not going to college.
Oh.
So anytime some opportunities that come up
Yeah.
that are much more work-based, I think are excellent opportunities that I feel is a need for our students. We do work with some local businesses, but it's limited on the amount that we can do
Yeah.
just because of the limitations. And like Julie said, transportation, it is literally in our backyard. That's a pretty big component.
Yeah,
And I mean, what a better success story than Julie Torres, she worked through the program, she now works at the airport.
yeah,
I mean, this is the model of what we're looking to do.
interesting. So it sounds like a pretty cool initiative. Again, there are a lot of parts of this. I think there's one grant that's been obtained, but for the whole project, for the whole
Mhm.
build-out, we're talking obviously some years down the road and a lot of different pieces to it. What's your sense of Highgate? I've got one friend who lives pretty near the airport. I think he's not real high on the project. I think just out of concern that there'll be more plane traffic. But in general, do you think people sound receptive? How much are people aware of this project, do you think?
It's definitely a project the select board's been talking about. It's been mentioned at our town meeting days for a few years now and at their
Yeah.
select board meetings. I can't really say I have a sense of what people feel.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, in the last 18 months, we don't have a lot of time to socialize.
For sure.
But I definitely think this is an opportunity that it kind of checks a lot of boxes. It's close to 89. It is in a fairly industrial area. I mean, there is some residences around there, but it's not like there's a huge housing development right next door.
Yeah.
I think the opportunities, the upside of this is very good.
Interesting. Yeah, the location. Of course, I can go back to Grateful Dead concerts back in the mid-1990s, which drew a few people to that area. But yeah, the location, 3 miles off the interstate,
Mhm.
about 7 miles south of the border.
Mhm.
Boy, another huge issue for this area, obviously. It'd be nice to see the border reopening at some point.
Exactly.
Boy, maybe, hopefully no later than this fall, but Franklin County's certainly been hurt by the pandemic, as probably most places have been. So it sounds like a real good initiative. And I guess we've got a vote in Highgate coming up at some point, I guess later in the year on this.
Right. And also, like Julie said, that, the entire state has been struggling with declining enrollments in schools.
Right.
We've been fortunate. Ours hasn't dropped a great deal since I've been on the boards,
Huh.
but it is declining. It is in Highgate. The elementary school is actually the one trending down.
Yeah,
So
really.
an opportunity to keep people in town and
Mhm.
attract new people to town. I'm personally all for it.
Yeah. Julie, is there a hope on the timeline on this? Or you're just kind of going along with how this plays out? Again, a vote in Highgate later this year. Have you got any hope on a time frame for this?
Well, I'm aware that any development that happens would take quite a period of time. I mean, I've been engaged in conversations with Highgate. I took this job 3 years ago. It was one of the first meetings they asked me to attend, was to have a discussion about this
Really?
expansion. But I would expect from the school's perspective, we have the staffing and the professionals to support whatever opportunities we can have with the airport. So if that runway expands, the water and sewer is integral, because
Sounds like
without
that's
that, you
huge gain.
can't develop.
Right.
But with that expansion and the lengthening of the airport, we have many more opportunities for students to have apprenticeships in aeronautic technicians, mechanics. Jet engines can land on a longer airstrip, so that's a whole other level of mechanical apprenticeships that can happen. The development that goes around an airport also provides business opportunities. We don't even know what they would be yet. But if you just think of the airport itself, with the expansion of it, it's bigger, there's more business, there are more technicians and professionals in the field there. We could begin as young as middle school with students going to the airport, touring, seeing the kinds of job opportunities. We can have science curriculum that includes aeronautics as part of it so that it generates interest. We already have our after-school program that has connections with the airport, and they have activities and they expose students. Students take lessons there. We could partner with the airport so that students do get to have their pilot license. In terms of timeline, none of that happens in a big hurry, but we have, if it's built, if it's developed, we can have those partnerships. And all it does is really strengthen the opportunities. Our students could have high-paying, highly skilled job opportunities that can take them right here to Franklin County. Chittenden County is developing a lot of aeronautics, and then across the country, there's a need for pilots and aeronautic technicians, just that's really going to expand over the next 10 to 20 years. This, just the fact that our high school is next to an airport creates an opportunity that it would really be hard to duplicate anywhere else. So it can only benefit our students whether they want to stay here in Highgate or whether they want to go anywhere else and have a high-paying job.
Interesting. Is there anything in the curriculum now kind of related to airport stuff or not particularly?
We do some things, and you know, the science covers some of it, but I even think about Julie's story and how having a work-based placement at school and partnering with school allowed her to be more engaged while she was in school. So if we were more intentional about that, and we were able to have more hands-on opportunities, go to the airport, build a project, build a drone, you know, whatever aspect that the teachers wanted to explore, doing it in a place that's authentic and engaging, and you're not just sitting in a classroom talking about it. It engages learners so that they're understanding, they're not just exposed to career, they're seeing the relevance of what they're learning to their future. It helps how well they do in school. It helps them stay in school. And obviously, as we've been saying, it helps them after school with possible placements.
Has the school to date had, of course, it'd be a pretty short field trip. I suspect kids probably would like a little longer field trip than going next door, but have there been activities? Has the airport kind of hooked into the school for some activities?
You know, it's particularly our after-school program. They've actually, one year, I don't believe it was because of COVID. I believe it was because we were having construction at the high school. So the summer program sort of went to the airport, and they were wonderful in inviting the school there. Students learned all kinds of things about the airport, and they had their regular activities, but they also had some special activities just for them. So it would only grow.
Julie, at what point have you been interested in aviation for a long time? Has this been a long interest you've had?
I think you could say that.
Yeah.
I was reminded of this recently, but I think my interest started at a career fair in 6th grade.
Wow.
I was in Colchester Middle School at the time, and I think they brought a jet to the school or something of the matter, and I got to sit in it. And I went home and I told my family all about it, and by 8th grade, I had my first flight lesson at Burlington, and I couldn't really continue that because I was 13 and didn't have money.
Is that right? You had your first flight lesson at 13?
13 or 14, I believe, yeah.
That's impressive.
It's amazing.
Wow. And then your family you happened to move, I guess, to Alberg? You live in Alberg?
Yep.
Yep, I know the terrain pretty well, lived out in West Swanton for a number of years, but, and so when did you move up here? Did you go to MVU for all four years, or no?
No, I was in Colchester High School for 2 years.
Oh, really?
Because Albrecht has school choice. There
Yeah.
isn't a high school in the islands.
Yeah,
So I chose Colchester. And then I was brought back to MVU.
so how'd you happen to flip over to MVU,
It's just family relationship.
really?
Yep.
And did the airport's proximity, was that a factor at that point, or was
Not
it
at the moment.
Not then?
I kind of assumed that I wouldn't be able to afford it.
Yeah,
So I think I was pursuing pharmaceutical, actually, till my senior year. And like I mentioned before, I met Richard, then I met Beth, and then I met George.
yeah.
And my journey sort of began.
Oh, that's great. Have you got any other of your classmates who ended up at the airport? Have you got any friends from MVU who are working at the airport as well?
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet. Interesting, but that's worked out well for you.
Absolutely.
Interesting. Chris, again, talking about educational opportunity. I guess Julie mentioned about 30 to 40% of MVU grads go on to college. So I was wondering what that percentage was. So majority of the grads do not go on to college.
Right.
Boy, so trade schools seem to get attention. I mean, boy, it sounds like there's just a labor shortage. Sounds like it's one of the biggest issues in the country. It sounds like just about any job students would want to get into might be a good way to go, but this certainly sounds like great potential if the airport, if you know, some industries come in there and stuff.
And it can snowball from there too, because if
Yeah.
industries come in, it actually supports the trades, because then you need maintenance on anything and everything. Buildings need maintenance.
Yeah.
You need plumbers, electricians,
Yeah,
contractors, the whole nine for that.
yeah.
It's interesting, you had asked about field trips to the airport. I was an MVU student, and I was actually at MVU when the Grateful Dead was there, as you
Oh,
mentioned
is that
earlier.
right? About the dead.
And I can remember going over a couple times with the school to the airport. In a past life, I used to work for a door company, and that's another trade that used to go and work at the airport.
Really?
I've been to Burlington and to the Highgate Airport working on stuff there.
Really?
So it definitely spreads out into the community more and more. I think it will provide a lot of opportunities. We don't know what they are yet, because it's,
Sure.
you're looking at a crystal ball, but I think this is a step in the right direction.
Our kids' trades, it just sounds like, you know, I mean, good luck for a lot of people getting like an electrician or a plumber.
Oh, my goodness.
And talk about good paying jobs. You see, is there more interest, I'd like to think, in young people maybe thinking about jobs like that?
Well, we need to do something to get that interest there.
Because that's what I'm always hearing, that schools aren't doing enough to, you know, to let kids know, hey, kids, you got a tremendous job with some of these, you know, great old occupations that are, you know, demographic-wise, or, you know, just older people are doing them.
Well, we did a project at MVU a few years ago,
Yeah.
and we had the project management company come in, and we spoke at length with them about how they could interact with our students while they were working on projects in the school. And they were frank with us. They said the average age of an electrician is 50-something. The same with plumbers and
okay.
stonemasons, et cetera.
Yeah.
And it is a real challenge to get students even interested in those fields. And we have a great tech center here at Northwest Tech Center, and
Yeah.
many students from MVU attend there.
Yeah.
But it's still not enough for all of the trades
Right.
that are out there.
And-
So
and
we
you-
had folks come, the students watched some of the trades folks working and they had sort of little mini field trips there when it was going on to try and just boost that interest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
MVU doesn't have its own tech center.
No, we're part of a collaborative. Everybody
Okay.
is assigned to a tech center in a region.
Okay.
And so,
And kids, a bunch of the kids do go to Northwest at
Absolutely.
BFA.
yes.
Interesting.
But again, we still would like to do more, sort of pre-technical or just even the work-based learning placement so that students can go to the tech center, but then be placed in
Yeah.
jobs and give them experiences so that they know, well, this is a career I might be interested in.
Yeah.
I think Julie is lucky that she had that experience that connected with her
Yeah.
and sort of inspired her. So many of our students they don't have the exposure to careers
Yeah.
that we don't even know what's out there. And as the fields are changing in 21st century, the jobs are different than when I was thinking about what I wanted to be when I grew up.
Yeah.
So just any kind of exposure we can have to trades and careers outside of go be a teacher or a nurse or a, you
Yeah.
know, the sort of traditional things people think of.
Yeah,
We just need more exposure. Yeah.
interesting. How, the pandemic, is MVU back to normal or not till the next school year, just to touch on the pandemic event?
We had to do it in stages as the requirements for physical distancing and so forth.
Yeah,
We did move 7th and 8th grade back to full-time
yeah,
in May, so that we could end the year strong. For high school, it was just a little too complicated with student schedules
Yeah.
to really, it would sort of upend a lot of students.
yeah,
So we were close enough to the end of the year.
yeah.
We expect that things will be back to normal or closer to normal next
Yeah.
year, and we'll have all of our students 5 days a week with a more traditional schedule, and hopefully, students will be able to sit next to one another a little more closely
Right.
and interact a little
Right.
more typically.
I guess obviously some students fared pretty well dealing with remote learning, and I'm sure
Mhm.
some other students probably had a very tough time, obviously.
I would say the biggest thing I learned about remote learning is it verified for me that the best way to teach a young child who's struggling to read is to have them in front of you.
Yeah, I bet.
And that for students who are self-motivated and really good at and inquiring in the way that they learn, that having expanded opportunities using the computer is a great thing to do. So we will continue to have some options
Yeah.
for courses that maybe we don't have enough interest at MVU, so students will have other opportunities. So we'll still have some remote learning, but not a full-time. It really doesn't work for all
Yeah.
students.
I can only assume you're a former teacher yourself, I
Mhm.
assume.
Yep.
Yeah. Julie, how did the pandemic, did that affect your work life? Were you able to still go to work, or were you doing, well, you tell me, did the pandemic affect your life quite a bit?
Yeah. So right when it struck, we didn't really have, like, we got kicked out of school and we didn't have the classes set up yet.
Mhm.
So there was a long period of time where there's a group of students who didn't really do any important learning.
Yeah,
And Beth White really helped me. She got right on top of that with me. And related to my work, I got online courses such as Sporties, which is a pilot's course, and King's online school. And I was studying towards my mechanics and pilot's license in that time before school kind of caught up with us.
yeah,
It was easy for me to, I suppose, engage. So I was
yeah.
very interested in what I was learning about.
Are things at the airport, do they seem to your eyes, are they kind of getting back to normal at this point?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it didn't take too long to get back to the airport because we kind of set up some safety restrictions and
yeah,
lowered the amount of people that were allowed in the hangars and
yeah.
whatnot. So I could still work with my mentor. He actually, before I was able to go back, he kind of set an iPad up on like a tripod, and he would work like mechanically, and I could watch him work and ask him questions, and
Wow.
it was very cool.
Were the number of flights, did the number of flights go down? Did that decrease quite a bit, do you know, because of the pandemic, or not especially, do you know?
I think it did.
I suspect it
but
probably affected that, huh?
Planes are kind of a small, or
Yeah.
the ones I work with at least,
Yeah.
for small areas. So it was kind of difficult to figure out how we can resume that and fit 2 people in such an enclosed space.
Yeah. Different kinds of plane, we're talking pretty much all small planes. that
Small
we had.
planes, yeah.
No,
Interesting.
No, they have like bigger planes at Burlington.
Yeah. And again, you're still taking flying lessons at this point?
I am.
Wow. How much longer? At what point would you hope to be, so you're not doing any solo flying at this point?
Not yet.
Not yet?
I'm close to soloing, I believe.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Getting pretty excited about that day?
I am.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
Chris, back to opportunities. Have you got, I guess I asked you, a sense of Highgate, again, big project coming up, a big vote in Highgate, which is probably a key part of the project's going to play out. Again, you have a ways to go, but you're running into anybody who's, strongly opposed to this for any reason, or I suspect it's,
That I have not. I haven't run into anybody strongly opposed.
you would kind of wonder why there'd be strong. I mean, most people you would think would be in favor of, maybe, a lot more job opportunities and stuff, although there's always, opponents doing anything, but you're not running
Right.
into much of that at this point.
I haven't. I have not. I have talked to some people, I would say more on the fence, just because we're early in the process and there's a lot of information going to be coming out this summer.
Yeah,
But I haven't heard anybody strongly opposed, no.
yeah. I guess it might be worth mentioning field days in case anybody, field days, maybe their years may be numbered on their kind of famous site that I know well. And I guess people shouldn't get on this airport expansion project's case about that. It sounds like the state basically apparently has, I guess, made it pretty clear to the field days that at some point, not too many years down the road, they need to find another site.
Yeah.
So people shouldn't blame this project on that, I don't think.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
interesting. You've probably been to a few field days in your life, I guess.
I've been to a few, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting.
It's something we usually look forward to every summer.
Yeah, no, nice event.
Yeah, it is.
In fact, I go back here many years. I can remember my old friend Doug Webb, a great guy from Fairfax. Maybe in one of my early years, circa 1980, I think, brought the field days back to life. I think it had lapsed for a while. There was an initial site in Fairfax, and then they found the great site in Highgate. So it's been a good event, but I trust they'll be able to find another site.
I hope they do.
Yeah,
It's definitely a community building event. It's a lot of fun.
yeah. Well, as school board members, do you think you'll get involved in trying to, push the vote in Highgate? Is that something you guys can, or do you tend to stay away from non-school issues, or how do you see your role in this, if any?
I see our role more in a supportive nature. It gets uncomfortable sometimes when you, as another board, tries to push in on another board's business.
Yeah,
But if we can be supportive in any way, I would be very willing to be supportive.
yeah,
The opportunities for the school, I think, are promising if this works out.
yeah.
And that's, as a parent, resident, and a school board member, that's the part that's very appealing to me.
Yeah. I'd like to think the Highgate Select Board might like to hear what the school board has to think about this project at some point, you think? Obviously,
They have been in contact,
They
yes.
have been in contact, that's good.
Yep.
Wow. So big project for Highgate. This is a big thing.
It is a big deal, yes. It's within. I think we've already touched on it, but if this is an opportunity to bring more business in the area,
Yeah,
it brings more jobs, it gets people the ability to stay here. I personally, I feel like a lot of people move out, so once they're done with school, this would be an opportunity for people to stay.
Mhm.
I mean, Julie's a prime example. She was able to do a work-study program and now has a job in the community.
and for a lot of the kids at MVU and other schools around here, used to their parents going off in a lot of cases, I'm sure, to the Burlington area for long commutes, so to shorten the commute would obviously be seemingly a very beneficial thing.
Yeah, I once upon a time used to work at IBM, so I used to have that hour commute every day.
You're aware of that only
Yeah.
too well.
Mhm.
Yeah, and now I'm a local contractor, so I work within Franklin County, and I like staying local a lot better.
Wow. So Julie, just to wrap up, again, big project, and people should kind of stay tuned to this and to see it as a potential big plus if this were to happen.
Absolutely. I know the school board, both before the merger, MVU School Board wrote a letter of support of this project, and then the Missisquoi Valley School District Board had me write a letter supporting this project, because with all of these grants that are available right now, federal money and state matching money, there's really an incredible opportunity to do something that's very beneficial for the community. And it's always scary to bond and spend and borrow money and spend
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
But the return on that investment, given all of the infrastructure money that will be coming to states, it's an incredible opportunity. So we're happy to be supportive of the board's work.
Okay,
select
on that
board.
positive, we're going to take a short break, but very many thanks to Julie Reichenball, the superintendent of the Missisquoi Valley School District, to Julie Torres, MVU grad, a person who works at the airport, hoping to be flying one of these days. Julie Torres, thanks. And Chris Shepard, the chair of the Missisquoi Valley School District Board. Thanks a lot for your time, folks.
Thank
We're
you.
going to take a short break. We'll be back with more in just a bit. Thanks. And we're back. Thanks for joining us, folks, on Northwest Access TV. We're talking about the proposed expansion of the Franklin County State Airport in Highgate, and especially the relevance to area students, including most certainly those at Missisquoi Valley Union High School. And happy to have back for double duty Julie Torres, an MVU grad who works at the airport. And we have a school coach, Beth White, who's worked closely with Julie and a number of other folks. And Beth, I'll give you a chance later to tell us all about exactly what you're doing. Also happy to have on the set Kevin Dwyer, Kevin Operations at Border Air at the Franklin
Border
County
Air.
State Airport. Anyway, Kevin, good to have you on board.
Thank you, Richard.
So again, big project here. Again, 3 distinct parts to it, and it looks like aside from the educational opportunities, if more businesses were to be attracted to the airport site, the state, in any case, Agency of Transportation, I guess, whatever, is looking to upgrade the airport. Can you talk about that, a runway
I
expansion?
can talk somewhat about it.
Yeah,
It is a
whatever you're comfortable
Sure,
talking about.
it's a V-Trans project, so
Okay.
it's a state project.
Has that been in the works for a while? When did you folks start hearing about this?
It's been in the works, I think, or hoped for in the last 7 years.
And you've been at the airport for about 5 years?
I've been a pilot there for about 5 years and
Wow.
working at Border Air for about 5 months. So
Tell me a little about Border Air.
Border Air is what's called a field-based operator, fixed-base operator. We manage the airport itself. Cliff Coy is the airport manager. So by FAA standards, he operates the airport itself, and we do everything within safety, fueling, mechanics, overseeing the operation. So,
How many planes a day are taking off, landing roughly? Does that
so
vary
it's
a lot?
definitely seasonal, but
Yeah.
a day like today, there could be 25 to 30.
Really?
It's a teaching airport, so there's a lot of flight lessons going on, as
Yeah.
you heard from Julie and you'll hear from Beth.
Yeah.
So we do have, I think, 8 flight instructors on property. So
Interesting.
they're flying as many as 3 to 5 students each
Right.
throughout the week. So a student may have 1 lesson, 2 lessons a week in hopes to get their license. So it's
Do you get the sense there's more interest of students these days, young people in flying, or about the same, or?
there is, because
Yeah.
what you're going to hear from Beth is she's drawing these kids in, and it's great. The young energy is really nice to have,
bet.
and that's why you'll hear a teaching hospital. Well, we're a teaching airport,
Really interesting.
and we are a community airport. So
Huh.
you'll hear Cliff say that. Cliff is very much about what we give back to the community, because we are vested in that community, and so it's not an island. It's part of the community,
Yeah.
and Julie's a product of that, and we actually love having her energy, and it's fun to have, I say kids, but young people around. So it's a nice environment, and Beth has contributed to that a lot.
Interesting. Let's, again, Julie back with us. So Julie, a 2020 MVU grad and interest in aviation for a number of years, and lo and behold, you're working at the airport. It sounds like you're doing well. And tell us about, so Beth has been very helpful for you over there?
Absolutely. She's definitely got me started and showed me many branches and ways I can pursue my passions, and really showed me the way.
Interesting. Beth, tell us, it's a lot easier for you to talk about yourself than me. Tell us about all you're up to.
Thanks, Richard. Yeah, so I discovered flying at an older age in my 40s, and
Really?
it was definitely a really amazing experience. I read this book called West with the Night about this woman in 1939 who flew for 26 hours
Is this
across the Atlantic.
Beryl
Yes, Beryl
It's
Markham.
funny, I've been reading that book to my kid off and on for the last year. Great book. I love the book.
I said, gosh, if Beryl can do this, why can't I? It's 2020 or 2019 when I first started. So I took a discovery flight and I loved it. I've been hooked ever since. And then
do you fly? Do you fly?
yes.
Really?
So
Wow.
I called into my reality an airplane, which sounds kind of funny, but I read this book called You Are a Badass, Stop Doubting Your Greatness and Start Living an Awesome Life. And it's all about just calling into your reality the things that and opportunities that will make your heart sing. And so after I took my flight lesson, I said, I'm going to call into my reality an airplane. And my friend looked at me kind of strangely and she said, well, what color is it? And I was like, is white and green. And then I kind of forgot about it, and I took a few flight lessons at kind of like what Julie did, and it was pretty expensive. And 6 months later, my mom got a call from my former elementary school math teacher's wife, Jane, and she said, so before Charlie passed away, we were noticing that Beth was taking flying lessons. We were wondering if she'd be interested in his airplane. And it happened to be at Franklin County. And so in exchange for helping Jane get a barn roof put on, I acquired this little Cessna 150.
Really?
And
Which you
I
keep at
kept-
Franklin County Stadium,
yeah,
that's your home
it's
airport,
right
obviously.
here.
Wow.
And so I started taking flying lessons out of it. And after a few hard landings, a few landing lights went out every now and then. And this guy at the airport, George Coy, said, you know, you could fix that yourself. And I said, really? And so he sort of took me under his wing, and I started mentoring. And he's like, you know, you can start logging these hours towards your mechanic's license. I said, really? And so every time I worked on my plane, or George let me help him out, I started logging hours. And I said, gosh, if I'm doing this, why can't kids do this? Do you ever take young kids or high school kids or middle school kids in? And so lo and behold, 2 years later, we now have about 16 young people
Really?
who are associated with our flying club, which is called EAA Chapter 613.
Oh.
And we have a bunch of middle school youth, some of whom Julie have mentored, 3 of whom are girls who are interested in becoming mechanics.
Wow.
And they basically call up George and they say, can we come to the hangar this weekend?
Really?
And then when COVID hit, they could come to the hangar almost any day of the week because they had a lot of flexibility if they could get there. And
Should note an obvious point. These are good.
Yeah.
These are good paying jobs. I mean, these are good jobs.
Yeah, and the most important thing is just to sort of expose youth to what's out there. So, you know, we had kids show up who are interested in flying lessons, but then, you know, something on the pre-flight is wrong with the plane, and so George has to get out his toolbox and fix it, and then they're right there helping him, and then, wow, I kind of like turning wrenches. And so then with the support from the Harbor Freight Tools for Schools Foundation, they contacted the organization I work for, which is called Big Picture Learning, and we're a not-for-profit organization that helps schools establish real-world learning and center youth in their learning opportunities.
Is this a local? Is this just a local organization? Whatever.
So this is a national,
So it's national.
program,
Wow.
and Julie was our very first Harbor Freight Fellow
Really?
in the state. And I got a call. I was actually visiting Missisquoi one day, and Richard Barwin, who's the work-based learning coordinator there, said, hey, I have a girl who's really interested in aviation. I know you're a pilot. Can you talk to her?
Right.
And so I met Julie in the cafeteria, and one thing led to another. She did a shadow day. She got to shadow George, see what it was like. And I could see her really excelling. Her eyes lit up. Her whole body language changed. And she was really good at whatever George had her working on. He only had to show it one time. And she was also really good at problem solving. I'd also say that there was a couple things that I think you fixed, probably some like band sawing of, help me out here, coming up with a quick fix.
Right.
And you know, these fabrication.
Yep.
Thank you. These young people have such plastic brains, you know, and they learn really quickly.
That's right.
Yeah.
So again, boy, it sounds like you'd be really busy. Again, we're talking about a project. We mentioned the state plans to upgrade the airport. Again, the other 2 parts of this, a private development of a 7-lot commercial park on a budding property. And Highgate comes in looking, I guess, a September vote on extending water and sewer lines from MVU. And if that happened, certainly the job opportunities, possibility of attracting industries down the road. You might be even a heck of a lot busier than you are now. Although we're talking a number of years here, but
Yes.
But you would like to see, this sounds like a good project. You would like to see a lot more business out there, so to speak.
Well, I was just sort of brainstorming with Julie before we went on about what are all the opportunities that exist right now. What do you say, Julie, for young people to apprentice?
Mechanics, other technical opportunities,
But I mean,
welding even.
but somewhat limited now. I mean, somewhat limited. I mean, you'd like to see a situation where there were a lot more opportunities available for young people?
I
Yeah,
think so.
yeah,
So the hopes are that in the development around the airport, it's not just the airport, but the technology park.
yeah.
And the technology park will obviously have jobs. And we hope that they're not warehouses. We want them to be robust companies that now embrace this same philosophy, and they bring in apprentice maybe. One of the companies is a machine shop. It's a great place to come and learn. These are technical jobs. And one thing I thought about when we were talking to Julie is she may have thought these jobs were out of reach unless she got to put her toe in the water and experience that, this is attainable. I can do this, as opposed to in a desk thinking, oh, I might want to be in aviation, but
But what does
can
that
I
mean?
do it? Can I do it? And so what we've tried to do is reduce those roadblocks and allow younger people to say, wow, this is attainable and I can do it. Like I said, it's a welcoming community, and that's, I've been there for 5 years.
Yeah.
It's a neat community, and there's a lot of smart people hanging around, but they're very gracious and kind and willing to help others, and that's what's neat about it.
And again, should note, a vote in Highgate, I guess, scheduled for September 14 on a bond issue to extend water and sewer lines. But that's certainly a key for what type of development there'll be in the commercial park.
It
I think
is.
you mentioned without that, it sounds like warehouses would be
Yeah.
the kind of the
It would
thing you'd probably
be,
expect, and maybe not too much more than that.
I think, Richard, it would fall short and be a disappointment. Right now, you have a huge opportunity. If you know Jeff Carr, the economist for the state, he says this is just,
Oh, is
if
that
you
right?
don't take
Yeah.
advantage of this, take full advantage of this, politely he say you're missing a really great opportunity
Yeah.
here. So folks should and hopefully understand that this is a big deal for Highgate and Swanton, really. So
In fact, I spoke earlier today, again, we're taping this on June 9th. I interviewed Tim Smith, the St. Albans mayor,
right.
whose day job is pretty important one, executive director of Franklin County Industrial Development Corporation. And Tim certainly sees this as emphasizing it's going to take a while, but if the vote is positive, could be just a very beneficial project for the area.
Right, like
And
anything.
Swanton village officials who I've interviewed recently, also Reg Beliveau, Neil Spear,
Yep.
Trustee Eugene LeBombard, seem to be think this is a great idea.
It's been a while for Highgate, and
Yeah,
I think now there really is an opportunity. They're in the spotlight, and they've got a chance here, and let's seize it. And it's not going to be overnight. Everybody's explained
Yeah.
that. There's some initial things that have to happen, but
yeah,
it's going to be an evolution. It's going to take some time, and
yeah.
we don't even know which companies want to come in, but we have
Sure.
had people call and ask, and,
Yeah.
what are you doing? And we're starting to see some intrigue and
Yeah,
interest, so it is an exciting time.
yeah. Boy, the location does seem just, again, 3 miles off the interstate, just south of the Canadian. In my early years up here reporting, it seems like the only new companies that would show up, and certainly Swanton was a beneficiary, and St. Albans were, companies north of the border looking to
Right.
have and that seemed to have, kind of diminished over the years, but maybe that could come back. Who knows?
It could come back, yeah. Yep.
Interesting. So Beth, again, you've got a number of folks you're dealing with besides, did I hear 16 at the airport?
Yeah, so we have a flying club called EAA Chapter 613, and anyone's welcome to join. This weekend, actually, we're hosting a Young Eagles Day, which is for youth ages 8 to 17 who maybe have never been in a small airplane before and they want to take their first Young Eagles flight.
Huh.
Julie, do you remember your first Young Eagles flight?
Yep.
Want to tell us about it?
Adam, right?
Yeah.
It was winter. He's got
Wow.
a mall with skis on it,
Wow.
and just went on over there. And he took me up that day, and
I think I read about this and brought you home.
he brought me
Was it
home.
landing on Lake Champlain?
Yep. I live on the lake, and he took me right in front of my house, and I was able to just hop out on the ice.
Wow, that's
It
wild.
was an amazing day.
Huh.
Yeah, that first flight is always a memorable one.
Wow. But I assume you're happy to see, are there more girls, you think, getting in and interested in aviation, stuff like this, Beth?
Yeah. So unfortunately, I think there's only 2% of mechanics are women.
Is that right?
And so we're
2%?
really trying
And
to-
they're talking airplane mechanics
Airplane
now?
mechanics, yes.
Really, 2%?
Yes.
Wow.
And out of 100 airline pilots, so air transport pilots,
Yeah.
only 5 of them are
I was
women.
about to ask you that. Really, just 5%?
So yes, so we're really trying to push that awareness and to open up awareness about aviation. Flying is one aspect, but also, like I said earlier, working on planes is a whole nother aspect. And so we do a lot of outreach. Like Julie said earlier, we host after-school programs at the airport, and we do summer programs as well. And this Learn to Fly weekend is coming up on the 12th, and kids can sign up, or parents can sign their children up. And then once they take a Young Eagle flight, they get access to free ground school through online through a company called Sporties, which is sponsored by the EAA. So it's a real nice introduction to flying. And then for folks who are a little bit older than 18 or 18 and older, they can come on Sunday. I know Julie said her husband might be interested in flying. So I think what Franklin County helped me demystify was that aviation is really for everyone. And I think Julie might have had a preconception about the true cost of aviation, but all the folks in my hangar and around me are working class people, and for the most part, yeah, there's a few doctors and lawyers up there, but for the most part, people are really hardworking, and my airplane basically costs a little bit around what a used car costs, right? And then if you can, get help working on it, or have some local mechanics work on it, it's reasonable. And I know a lot of folks share planes as well, so they kind of buy into an airplane. So it's really manageable, and it's really fun.
Well, I guess I'm
Yeah.
thinking back. I think the one time I've ever taken off at the Franklin County State Airport, old friend Floyd Handy, the late St. Albans mayor, who, boy, if anybody loved flying more than Floyd, I don't think
Yeah.
I've met that person. But
Yeah.
Maybe his son.
Yeah, his son's
oh, is that
an avid
one
flyer.
of the kids? Is
Yes.
Dan's up there.
That's all right, Dan's the flyer. But yeah, Floyd took me out over the lake. I remember that flight. That maybe the one time I've taken off from the airport and landed there, fortunately. But
Well,
so the airport sounds like a pretty busy place.
it's a busy place, and I want folks to understand they can walk in and say hi and
Yeah,
take a look around. We
Yeah.
want it to be open and accessible.
yeah.
So if you want to go flying again, I'll take you up.
Yeah, that's very kind.
And
So
if you wait a little bit longer, Julie can take you up.
Yes.
Wow, how about that? I'd be curious, can you give us a typical day on the job, Julie? What is there a typical day for you, or anything but typical? Just with your work?
It's usually something different every day.
Yeah,
I often show up and look to my mentors for work, and I don't know, I'm just always learning, and every day's an adventure. Yeah.
One day she showed up, and we ended up heading to Maine.
Yep.
Oh,
That was a fun day.
Yes, I was setting up a maritime program through the Harbor Freight Fellowship. So we're sending 5 Vermont kids to Portland, Maine, to work on a tall ship this summer.
Really? That sounds great.
While it comes in to port, and they're fixing all the broken electrical stuff and plumbing stuff, and doing lots of painting and varnishing, and then they're sending it back out to sea. So
Wow.
Julie got to see all that was going on at the shipyard, and it's not actually that much different than, I think, stuff that you do at the airport. There was fiberglass going on, and oil changes, and so there's a lot of transferable skills, right? So, the folks at Missisquoi can come and apprentice with our paint shop, or, there's a guy upstairs who does all the panels. He has a water laser cutter, I think, that he cuts out panels for people who are putting in new instruments and modernizing their panel of their airplane. And those skills are all transferable. So a kid who's interested in diesel mechanics might actually really enjoy working in aviation, just may not know it yet. She just has to be exposed to a shadow day or a network.
So do you recruit? Is that part of what you're doing? Do you go over to NVU and try to find some kids who might be interested in this?
So Richard, it's pretty much about relationships,
Yeah.
and the more Julie Regimbal gets to know me, and Richard Barwin, and then he finds out I'm really interested in flying as my hobby, and he's really interested in flying too, and he was actually building a plane. So you kind of get to know one another, and then one thing leads to the other, and he introduces you to a student named Julie Torres.
Interesting.
And yeah,
Oh. So back to, again, the project, talking about.
Sure.
So it looks almost certain, the state's been talking about making some improvements at the airport for
Yes,
years, I guess.
yep.
So it looks like that's pretty much a done deal.
So if you drive by the airport I think it was last fall, they did the fence expansion.
Okay.
And they cleared out some trees, it was appropriate. And then inside the fence should start somewhere spring of '22, so that's when they'll extend the runway.
About 1,000
It's 1,000 feet, yes.
So on the south side,
It will be on the south side, yes.
I
So,
guess, yeah.
yeah, so now you can get a sense for the perimeter based on the fence line.
Oh, okay.
So if you come on up, you can see where that will be. It's still quite a distance from the road. There are parameters specified by the FAA for safety reasons, obviously from overhead lines, trees, houses, so all that is taken into consideration.
And that would be enough, in small jets, it's not a long enough runway at this point?
It could be small jets, but I don't suspect that it will increase
Okay.
to a high jet traffic.
Yeah.
You'll see probably multi-engine, twin engine, but you're not going to see heavy planes. It's just not long enough.
And don't look forward to flying out of Highgate in the future if you're going somewhere as opposed
Yeah,
to
you
Burlington.
never know. There could be, I don't know if Boutique Air is going to fly out of
I guess
Franklin
Burlington,
County.
just, I'm a Boston area native, I guess.
Yeah,
Flights
yeah.
Burlington to Boston
They
flights.
did.
Started, right?
Gene is thrilled that Boutique Air is going
Yeah,
out of
Boutique
Burlington
Air.
again, yes.
And those are pretty small planes?
They're small planes. They're Pilatus. I think they're 8 seats,
Oh, really?
6
Wow.
to 8, and they fly twice a day, maybe down and back.
Very
But
interesting.
like you said, when I was much younger, there was
Yeah.
daily trips to Boston. You could catch any of 6,
Yeah.
but with roads, so
Yeah.
now it's cheaper to drive. But now I think we're getting back to, hey, it might be easier to fly,
Yeah.
depending on how it is to get out of the Logan Airport area. But Burlington is so accessible for commuting. So, in fact, a
Yeah,
lot
if
of
I'm never
Canadians.
dealing with Logan again in my life, I'll be a happy
Yeah,
guy.
it's a busy place.
Yeah.
But I don't think you're going to see a lot of commercial commuting traffic out of Franklin County.
Okay. And I should mention, again, I keep hearing rumblings of more cargo planes. I talked to you off air, but that remains to be seen, and don't.
This
not-
may be
not.
above my pay grade or
Yeah.
outside of my purview, but
Sure.
we have not had any interest that we know of. Maybe the state has, but FedEx, UPS, USPS,
Yeah, Nobody's been checking in on.
they haven't. And, you know, what I think you'll see is there's going to be some aviation technology there.
Yeah.
Planes will fly in, they may pick up equipment, they may drop off equipment, may get serviced, but it's early to say. But
Yeah.
Amazon, I don't know. Who knows what's going to happen in 5 years? But I do think it's intended to be an economic driver,
Yeah.
and it's going to increase aviation at the northern end of the state, which is appropriate. We do find that there's some Canadian traffic that wants to come in to Newport into Franklin County,
Yeah.
but they're just going to travel here, and they either have a home here or visit. So
Pre-pandemic, could you fly north of the border, or can you not do that?
pre-pandemic, you can fly north of the border, but if you're going to land, you got to tell somebody.
Okay, so you have to tell folks up there if you're just crossing the
If
border.
you just cross
in
the
air?
border a bit,
I bet you're
you know,
okay.
you're all right. But if you touch down anywhere
Yeah.
without permission or without a border clearance,
Right.
you're going to have a problem.
There
So
are some small airports just north of the border, boy, none.
there are. I mean, you can fly to Montreal from here,
Sure, Montreal, obviously.
Saint Hubert has a nice little airport
Oh,
with
yeah.
customs. So
Right.
honestly, it's about a 15-minute flight from Franklin County to Saint Hubert
Is that
with
right?
customs. There's not customs at Franklin County yet, but
Yeah.
so Saint Hubert, you can enter Montreal there.
Interesting.
So, yeah, post or during the epidemic, you could fly to Plattsburgh back and forth from Montreal, which we saw some of that going on. But
Right.
would we enjoy that? I don't know. I don't know if we would get that traffic.
Yeah. Isn't the Plattsburgh airport, didn't they shut down, are they still shut down, or what?
They're shut down for a better part of the summer
Really?
for repaving,
Wow,
yeah, which was needed.
yeah,
Yeah.
interesting.
So,
So again, it looks like the airport, the runway extension, the airport upgrade, looks like it's clearly going to happen.
That's a federal and state project, and that
Yeah.
looks like a pretty much a
Looks
fait
like a
accompli,
go.
done deal, yeah.
And again, another part of this, the private development of a 7-lot commercial park, and what ends up coming in there, it sounds like that's.
So that's where the water and sewer is so key.
It's key for what's
Because,
gonna locate in there.
we have I swear we have inquiries every day for hangar space.
Is that right?
But
Really?
if I don't have water, I don't have sewer, then I can't service my plane and things like that. So if we don't get that, that hinges
Yeah.
on much of it. So
Yeah. And the water quality is not real good there? And I'm
I
trying
have to be polite, but it's marginal.
is that pretty
Yeah,
marginal?
Yeah, it's not potable. We don't drink it.
Is that right?
Yeah.
You don't drink it?
No.
And obviously septic for,
We have a septic system, but I would
yeah,
say it's pretty much at its limits.
really, wow.
Yeah, I'm not a septic engineer, but I do
Gotcha.
know, there's much more on it that was intended, and we need to we need to
Yeah.
fix that.
Well, it sounds like a very important vote coming up in Highgate again. I
It
guess
is.
about a $3.5 million project cost, and
And of
Highgate
that,
folks are certainly trying to get grants and have gotten some grants already, I guess.
of that 3.5, it's with COVID money and some other money, some federal money, it hopefully will be a minimal impact on Highgate.
Yeah.
Nobody
And
knows what that
Pointed out,
is.
the taxes, if you get some good companies in there, obviously.
They will carry that.
Pretty good tax revenue out
Yep,
of.
and hangars pay taxes.
Okay, and hangers there.
So a hangar owner pays taxes to the town, and so.
Oh, is that right, just to the town?
Yeah,
Okay,
so there's tax money to the town, which is beneficial.
yeah. Have you got pretty good space up there, Kevin, for more hangars?
We have space.
Yeah.
What we don't have right now is the water sewer. It's the chicken and the egg, the cart and the horse,
Yeah.
either way.
So nothing you can really do on the hangar front without water and sewer?
No, it would be,
With more hangars?
yeah, it would be helpful. And then same with the industrial park.
Right.
So
Um,
we'd need that to do that. So it would be, again, increasing the richness of the airport and the experience. And like I said, for education, for the utilization,
Yeah,
and for the community.
yeah.
So
Pretty, I mean, this sounds like down to about 2.5 minutes here, but so pretty excited about the project and what could be just, you know, so many more educational opportunities for
Yes.
area students.
Yeah, so I don't know if you've heard about Beta Technologies, Richard, down in Burlington.
I've heard it, yeah.
They're
oh, in
expanding
fact,
a lot. They created the first eVTOL, or one of the first. They're in the race.
Cover
That is a
story on
vertical
7
takeoff
days,
and then
right.
electrical airplane,
Yeah.
200 nautical miles or so. Their founder is Kyle Clark, and Kyle's
Right.
very first airplane ride as a child was with
Ah.
George Coy, and so. You know, Kyle went off to MIT and now he's back and he's developing Beta and they're constantly expanding and growing. So the possibilities of, you know, you never know that little kid who comes on that Saturday that hops into your Cessna 150 with you, they could be the next, you know, inventor of
Yeah.
something like Beta. And then now, I mean, they can't even build fast enough in Burlington to accommodate all their needs in their growing expansion. So,
Wow. Yeah, nice cover story on 7 days a couple of weeks ago about that.
yes. Yeah.
Interesting.
And we have five of our youth from our EAA chapter are now interning at Beta.
Oh, really?
So
Oh,
they
that's
have
great.
a robust internship program
Any
as well.
potential for anything like that at the Franklin County State Airport?
that would be super, that would be really cool. And we'd love to have them.
Yeah, so
but,
you'd certainly be
yeah.
open to that?
We are. It's not just my opinion.
Sure.
But yeah, it would be nice.
Right.
And you talk about tech jobs.
Yeah.
Those are
Wow.
tech companies.
Yeah.
And there's so many facets to aviation. There's electronics, there's aerodynamics, there's power plant, there's each young person might find something they're more
Yeah.
engaged in. I mean, there's body work, there's,
Yeah.
it's just, so it's neat. And we'd love to have Beta if that works out.
Great.
So.
And just about to wrap it up here, Julie, it sounds like you found a nice kind of employment home at the Franklin County State Airport.
Absolutely.
So,
I've built some really strong relationships over there that I'm quite fond of, and I think that's really important and often overlooked, I believe. As a student who's kind of been in both worlds of sitting in the classroom and kind of being one of the numbers and a bunch of us focused in on one person, and also experiencing having that one-to-one experience with someone and kind of really absorbing what I'm being learned. I think that relationship is very important, and I kind of want to share that with other students.
very good. On that positive note, we'll call it a day. Thanks very much to Julia Torres, MVU grad, working at the Franklin County State Airport, school coach, and a lot more. Beth White, thanks, and Kevin Dwyer. with Operations Border Air at the Franklin County State Airport.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Richard.
folks, for the time. Thanks for all the information. And Highgate residents, big project. I'm sure there'll be a lot of information coming out this summer. We'll certainly give you more here, but a big project, a big thing coming up in Highgate and Franklin County. Thanks for watching us here on Northwest Access TV. I'm Richard Cowperthwait. See you next time.